You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Welcome back to the Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about jiu-jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a black belt who trains and teaches at traditional Taekwondo and Middle Jiu-Jitsu located in Winnemucca, Nevada. Ladies and gentlemen, Albert.
Hey, how you doing, Lamar? It's nice to meet you on here. I enjoyed some of your I enjoyed some of your posts on Facebook there.
Thank you. So how's your day going so far?
Pretty well. Trained this morning for jiu-jitsu 2 hours. And then Taekwondo at noontime was just about an hour class, hour and a half.
Oh, okay. Pretty productive day.
Yes. I had my coffee, and then I'll be eating my lunch and dinner to get the heart rate down.
Gotcha. Well, man, let's get the ball rolling, man. If you want to formally introduce yourself again, by all means, and let's hear your jiu-jitsu journey.
Cool. Well, my name is Mr. Albert. Last name is Dyk. My jiu-jitsu journey is kind of interesting there over time. My first experience with jiu-jitsu itself, especially sport jiu-jitsu, actually when I was in college, and it's about over 20 years ago. And I had about at that time maybe 8 to 9 years straight of traditional Taekwondo, which made me very athletic and things like that. And my original master also, though, did a lot of judo. And I played around with wrestling too. So I kind of had a background there. But then my first experience with a blue belt that was smaller than me in jiu-jitsu was actually in college. And we kind of started from our knees there, and he was able to gain my back and able to, land. I think he landed it seemed like, he was trying to do a triangle and then switch to the arm bar there. And I thought right away there, hey, there's something here with this martial art that is has a high level of skill, kind of like when you're a high level striker. Actually, they're when you're a lot of my original Taekwondo was done on like harder floors, like either like a wood basketball floor or other kind of like hard surfaces there. So, and when we were doing judo, we were doing a lot of judo from standing and also on the hard surfaces there. Yeah, so it kind of, and then, but the idea there in the original Taekwondo was that you really weren't doing judo to like first or second degree black belt, because most people were already in like high physical shape already from the traditional Taekwondo drills, the forms, kicking drills, stand-up sparring, and all that stuff. So they kind of, there's less injuries in the judo throws that way too, kind of when the people have higher level of conditioning. And that was kind of the original philosophy there when I was like in high school there, with the Taekwondo and the judo there. Anyways, that guy that was a blue belt later, and this was in college, he then brought a purple belt later. And then he brought a purple belt to challenge me too, because at this time in college, now I was a second degree black belt, technically not third degree black belt in Taekwondo. Anyways, I ended up, at that time, I just considered it wrestling. I was wrestling the purple belt. Well, anyways, he was from another studio. I ended up dominating this whole guy the whole time. And this guy was already a purple belt, but I had about 8, 9 years of Taekwondo. I was athletic. I had an understanding of, like I said, wrestling and judo. So I ended up dominating this purple belt. And this is already like, quite a few years ago. This is, and I'm in my mid 40s now. So that's kind of 20 years ago. And that's kind of like obviously, those were like, it wasn't really in classes. And then also in college there, I was dabbling with a guy at a different gym too, even though I was still in Taekwondo at the time. A Sambo guy that was a purple belt, but he was like huge, and he was in his mid 40s or early 40s, steel worker, just tough as nails. And he had a high level of grappling too that could dominate me. But in the stand up sparring, though, in the Sambo, there, I could dominate him with my Taekwondo there. But he was just so tough on the ground that, he was, cross facing you, choking you out, other things like that. Um, cool dude, though. Lots of experience for, I would say, a purple belt in Sambo there. But that was kind of a thing where it was a size difference there too. Obviously. So size and strength with jiu-jitsu does, play a factor there. Because that jiu-jitsu purple belt that was highly trained that I dominated within that same year, um, he wasn't that much smaller than me frame wise, but I might have been a little thicker than him at the time, maybe there, too. But he had quite a few years of jiu-jitsu there already as a purple belt, and he was already mid-20s there, and I was, how old was I? I was like 21 maybe at the time. Yep. And then from there, after I got out of what do you call it, college there, I worked for a year, and then I ended up in the military, and then I had kind of more professional jiu-jitsu training in the military there, and I had to do an exhibition there right away in basic training, actually, in my advanced individual training. At the end of everything, I was a forward observer, and at the end of everything, they had like a family day or whatever, and they wanted to do an exhibition. Well, and at that time, actually, when I joined the military, I was already a third degree black belt. So I got my third degree black belt at the end of college for Taekwondo. But anyways, at the end of AIT, they had a exhibition there, and then I had to face a purple belt from another company there for family day, and then but it was all jiu-jitsu rules, and then they were originally advertising it that it was taekwondo versus jiu-jitsu, but the one drill sergeant was like, hey, it's not taekwondo versus jiu-jitsu because Dyke can't kick or punch, so it's a taekwondo guy trying to compete with a jiu-jitsu purple belt. So it's kind of funny, but anyways, I ended up dominating that purple belt the whole time. He couldn't submit me ever, and then I ended up on top and just playing the top wrestling like pinning game there, kind of like side control. And the time was up, and then I ended up winning with points and just by domination there. And there was like 300 people there, and people were going crazy and stuff like that. So from there, though, I spent my time in Korea, and there I trained with World Taekwondo, and we were actually doing jiu-jitsu on the base there with the World Taekwondo people there too, actually, kind of on the side for like self-defense, but they didn't really do any like full rolling there, actually. There was a lot of technique and a lot of, some of that Olympic Taekwondo is kind of like traditional Taekwondo too. They like a lot of knife stuff. So some of that self defense is kind of like mixed with jujitsu, but some of it's like knife, and then they don't get proficient on the ground because they're just not rolling enough. You know what I mean? Some of these people.
Yeah.
That's why I like over there in Korea there with the World Taekwondo. I mean, I was dominating a whole Olympic school with Taekwondo sparring and just, with jujitsu too, just right away. And other things. And then I ended up going at Fort Bragg. And at Fort Bragg, I was in some schools where there was some intense jujitsu training actually and teaching. Military schools. And from there, and then from there, that's when I kind of faced like real level high black belts maybe there, actually. Was at Fort Bragg. And one place, had me there. He kind of paired me up with a brown belt right away. And I just kind of progressed from there. But then I kind of moved around a lot too. And but obviously, when you're facing these real black belts, there's a learning curve there, and kind of what I call a squeeze curve for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, anyways, from there, I had tours to Iraq, and then martial arts is a little bit different in modern warfare there versus sport there too, in cases. Um, and I love jujitsu. I think it's great for one-on-one, but there was kind of issues with certain first sergeants kind of obsessed with jujitsu versus doing their platoon tactics. Have you heard? So, because technically when you're in a gunfight, you don't want to like just grab and lay on the ground there when there's multiple attackers, or you're entering rooms. And we were doing a lot of training for urban combat too, actually, for Iraq. So, um, the Taekwondo for kicking indoors comes in handy there, and also and also actually kind of like the hand-eye coordination for Taekwondo actually helps with kicking indoors and being able to professionally handle your rifle without making mistakes
Mm-hmm.
under stressful conditions. So, but there was times, sometimes we would have downtime, and we'd get together, and sometimes some of us army guys, like in the recon battalion, would roll together, or sometimes wrestle there if we had a little time. But it wasn't the main focus there. And then after my deployments, I was kind of getting towards retirement there. And I was just dabbling at a few different jujitsu schools there, wanting to kind of go through the belt ranks. But then from there, I decided I didn't want to live in North Carolina, actually. So I didn't spend enough time at this one school. So I ended up at another school for a while in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
But there, and I thought, well, I'm going to go to a franchise location, and I want to go and professionally get my belts or whatever there. But anyways, I was I was smashing all their students, kind of there, like, but respectfully.
Yeah.
And then at open mat, I'm dominating their purple belts, and then submitting them even. And then I'm rolling with the black belt instructors, and some of them are even my size, and it's like I'm almost submitting some of them, and they're not submitting me.
Wow.
And that's where I had a talk after class that I'm kind of like a walk-in competitive black belt, and for me to progress there and compete with them, they wanted $10,000 for me. And the school owner admitted they had just invested $250,000 to open that place.
Wow.
And basically, they need white belts to pay that don't know shit.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, then I talked to one of their assistant instructors though as I was walking to my car, and he said, "Dude," he goes, "your taekwondo is beautiful." He goes, because they were letting me kind of kick on the heavy bags there too after some jujitsu training. And I kind of was already teaching taekwondo part time again. I've been a taekwondo teacher on and off like my whole since I was like a teenager. So I started taekwondo at 12. I was a big young kind of black belt that was like could take on like adult males in taekwondo. So I was a teacher by like 16 and 17 already in taekwondo, like kind of an introduction, and then kind of through college, I kind of became like more um, just a higher level of taekwondo there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept up with my taekwondo in my military time as well. Like if I had free time, I'd knock out my forms, kicking drills, and just stuck with it kind of thing. Anyways, the instructor there at that one franchise jiu-jitsu location said, he goes, he's his instructor, he waited for me by my car. He's like, "I know what y'all talked about over there, and you're probably not coming back." But he goes, "You have beautiful taekwondo." And he goes, "You have a level head." And he goes, "You might actually teach jujitsu better than some of the guys here."
Mm.
I kind of laughing there. And that's where I started exploring and looking for open tournaments for jujitsu and things like that. And when I ended up moving to Nevada here, because I found property and things here, I just kind of kept training, and then I kind of ended up having a few people ask me to teach, and I started teaching Taekwondo again. And I wasn't trying to poach any jujitsu students actually, because there was already a few other jujitsu schools here.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wasn't going to try to really teach jujitsu there, but it just kind of fell into my lap. And then Fuji kind of gave me a sponsorship, and then I went to a Vegas jujitsu tournament with Fuji, and competed with, kind of heavyweight black belts there. And I hung with them there. I ended up losing 2 matches there.
Mm-hmm.
But the matches were lasting there. It wasn't like they submitted me in 30 seconds or anything like that. So it's kind of like, but they felt also stronger and bigger than I came in at 205. And some of these tournaments are like that though, where you're going to show up and you're going to weigh in. And then at Fuji, the reason why they gave me a sponsorship too is because they said they need people that are going to back out at the last minute at tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they kind of matched me up with people that they knew that were a little heavier than I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't look that much smaller than them because I'm like 6'1". But they were probably, the one guy was probably like 5'9". The other guys like maybe 5'11". But I think they're pushing over 220.
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? And the one guy was actually an ADCC black belt competitor there too, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you know much about the ADCC there, but it seems like overall Fuji's trying to create like a pure, clean atmosphere compared to different jujitsu locations, because other jujitsu locations, like, I mean, you've heard stuff, right? Like there's a lot of what I would, pet abuse or things like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been natural my whole life, actually, even in the military. And I met people in the military that were doing anabolic steroids or PEDs. And I found they were better at me in certain things, but for long lasting endurance, especially in the military, they couldn't really keep up with me just because I was naturally healthy there.
Yeah.
And then people, when they're taking black market stuff, there's like different kinds, right? Like Lance Armstrong was taking PEDs that were like meant for cutting and endurance. Well, that's what all these lightweight fighters are trying to do. They're trying to take all these cutting like endurance PEDs. So
Mm-hmm.
they're the biggest frame and the smallest weight class, and 5 rounds is nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but those were good matches in jiu-jitsu there. I had though at the Vegas tournament, um, and that's when they gave me actually another sponsorship. I think they wanted to make sure that it was going to be tough there. And they also were seeing to see how I was going to probably act in public. Like, is this guy going to act like a complete bitch losing in public?
Mm-hmm.
Because because to be honest with you, there was a lot of the other schools that were there. Guess what? There was a handful of black belt instructors that backed out of competing there. And
Wow.
they just walking out of the tournament at the end. And they're coaching their little kids in their kids matches.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some of that going on too. And the guy that was running the whole tournament was a pretty good guy. And he was in the military too. He was running the whole tournament, and I ended up having to roll with the guy running the whole tournament there. He's a freaking strong guy, very strong. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I was basically gassing out at the end, and then he gets me in the head and arm from the knee on belly, and
Oh, the
he won.
impaler. It's one of my favorites, man. One of my
And then
favorites.
I was just, because it works. And the
Yeah.
thing is, he had got me actually on a good takedown too, and I could tell that guy had done some judo, too, the way he took me down. So I knew right away. Oh, he also has judo. And then from the side control and knee on belly, I was just gassing out at the end, and he snuck that head and arm in, and there was no way I was spraying. I was too gassed. Um, he was too strong, and I wasn't framing out of it. And then it was getting close to the end too of the match, and I just finally tapped like, I don't know, 30 seconds before the 5 minutes was up or something.
Oh wow, so close.
But he was dominating me. But you know what? This is the thing. I haven't been submitted in 10 years till I went to the Vegas tournament for
There you
Fuji.
go.
And that's the point of tournaments, actually, though.
Mhm.
And you got to be willing to move up in weight class, or just, just jump in, win or lose. And that's kind of the point of tournaments too. And original Taekwondo tournaments were kind of that way there too, because you'd sometimes, back like in the 90s when I was in high school and sometimes in college, you'd only have so many competitors, right?
Mhm.
So, sometimes you were sparring bigger, smaller, or sometimes you're one round, the dude's like way bigger than you. And all of a sudden you're in another round and the guy's like smaller than you.
Mhm.
And size does matter. And then Taekwondo, height kind of with the point system matters there. Because if you're longer and you know how to manage your range, you're going to score way more points than, somebody with shorter legs than you, too, for sure.
You're right.
So, but anyways, that's kind of like my background and jiu-jitsu journey. And then I'll bring one more point up about the Vegas tournament.
Mhm.
I have a 21-year-old. He just turned 21. I have a 21-year-old blue belt. He's 21. Well, he started Taekwondo with me here originally, and then he started showing up to the jiu-jitsu classes. He's been sparring with me, almost every 3 days a week for about a year.
Mhm.
So he starts off as a white belt. He gets up to blue belt, in my opinion. See, that's why some of these franchise jiu-jitsu places are actually gaslighting you in a lot of technique, because I don't believe it takes 10 years to get a black belt in jiu-jitsu or sport jiu-jitsu. Japanese jiu-jitsu, it might be harder to get a black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu professionally than sport jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Maybe. But anyways, so I promoted my student before the tournament to blue belt, and we're not really doing stripes. Anyways, he's only 21. He faced a guy that was a blue belt with 2 stripes that looked bigger and was in his 30s. Well, maybe not bigger. He just looked more like muscular and conditioned. Anyways, my blue belt ended up dominating the whole time, and he was from one of the franchise places. And my blue belt, that's only been training a year, dominated that guy. That was like in his 30s and has like, I don't know, more experience, looked more in shape too. So and then that's why at the end of the tournament, they're also joking with me that, oh, you're a professor, he's only been training with you for a year. Really? And he just dominated this 2-stripe blue belt that looks like tougher and, kind of like, has been around the block a little bit longer.
Mhm.
And then, so, so even though I got my butt kicked, my student did really good. And they joking around that I'm a professor now because of my blue belt too. That was
Wow.
kind of cool there. That was kind of fun there. And then at the Fuji tournament, though, if you're a coach there, because I think what's happened in the jiu-jitsu world, and it happens with World Taekwondo and other Taekwondo organizations, there's just a lot of corruption sometimes with how they stage the tournaments for the trophies and the medals.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I've heard of, like, even in the jiu-jitsu world too, where, you have tournament leagues where people are belt hopping there, where they show up to an open tournament and they sign up as a blue belt, but actually they're black belt level. And then I had a guy stop by my studio here to train with me for a little bit, and he said he was a blue belt, but he wrestled for 20 years. and I'm rolling with him in my studio there, and I can submit him and stuff. But he's really athletic and has a lot of natural jiu-jitsu ability there. But he came originally from a school in Colorado, and it's also a franchise place that's kind of also mixing with MMA there. But he has a lot of telegraphable techniques, so that's how I'm easy to that's why I was able to submit him pretty easy, even though he was around my weight and pretty aggressive wrestler. Because I just let him wrestle me into a so I could submit him.
That's what you gotta do with those wrestlers, man. You can't. You just gotta let them tire out.
And then he was a little upset about it, and then he was wanting to go to the tournament, and I said, well, to be honest with you, I said, you're kind of like, and then kind of the way I'm doing my promotion there too is that the difference between a blue belt in my studio between a purple belt is not necessarily the technique, but it's the conditioning. So the purple belt has maybe the same level of technique there as the blue belt, but the purple belt is just higher condition. And then once you have that purple belt that's higher conditioned, that's when he starts, he knows all the basic positions, he knows all the basic submissions, but then he's adding now his own combinations, right? He's moving on. And then he's able to start helping direct these combinations to others that makes sense to beginners.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of your path, I think, to black belt there for jiu-jitsu there. And that's why some people are going to stay at blue belt forever because the reality of the franchise model is people are going to stay at blue belt forever because these people they're not going to teach unless the blue belts are bringing in more white belts for more revenue. And that's the truth. And certain taekwondo circles are that way in the advanced black belt ranks. If you're not bringing so many like kids to the tournament, they don't want to promote you because this other black belt that can't even kick brought 15 kids to the tournament. And now he's a 6th-degree black belt, but he can't even kick to his chin in taekwondo. But he's bringing all the kids. But he's bringing all the kids to the tournament. So the jiu-jitsu world is facing the same roadblocks as all this taekwondo franchising too. So that's why that's why these Fuji leagues are coming up. Oops, sorry, I dropped my phone. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Anyways, that's why these Fuji leagues are coming up. I just seen an advertisement for, I think it's kind of, have you heard of X Grappling or Grappling X?
No.
That's another jiu-jitsu league, tournament league you can jump in on, and they have pretty cool like medals you can win for like 1st and 2nd place too.
Yeah, we usually get Fuji sometimes, but it's more so like Grappling Industries and Naga. And
okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was wanting to do Naga, but somehow I like the gi too, and then somehow Fuji just contacted me, and I'm just jumping on board with Fuji there.
I like Fuji.
Well, and their equipment is really nice, and they give me a really good deal on all these uniforms. So I get the uniforms from anywhere from like $80 to $90, like the high quality ones with a wholesale account.
Nice.
Yeah. And then they're letting me walk in as a black belt to compete. But it's kind of like that deal. Like, they're sick. People are sick of like these so-called black belts not wanting to all of a sudden compete at the last minute in public.
Yeah.
And the reality is people are different sizes and different ages. Like no one's born at the exact same time.
No.
So these tournaments are kind of designed just to test yourself against somebody that's maybe around your age, weight, and skill level.
Mm-hmm.
If you win, you win. If you lose. I mean, but don't show up to the tournament and then all of a sudden be like, And don't even go there, right? Just don't even show up.
Just don't even show up, right? Because you see,
But
that's
these people
unfortunate
have
a
kids
lot
and
though.
students, so they're supposed to be there to coach the kids and students. But then these coaches that with the kids are not competing themselves. They just kind of having their kids do it, and then they quit bouncing after the kids divisions are done.
Yeah, I mean, just do that. Just focus if you want to. If you're gonna have like 10, 15 kids competing, just focus on that. Don't sign up for a tournament knowing that you can't do it.
Yeah, but then the idea I thought behind jiu-jitsu was that black belts could basically just, dominate people, regardless if it's in public or not. So why are these black belts not competing in their divisions, but they're expecting their kids to compete in the divisions? Some of them,
Right.
and it's just the way it goes. And that's
Yeah,
why
that
all
makes.
these open tournament, and that's why there's all these open tournament leagues starting up because people are sick of
Mm-hmm.
like these rigged kind of franchise tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where it's like they're kind of setting you up with like different experience or size or something there instead of
Yeah,
trying to match up
there's
people
definitely
equally there.
a need for a better structure when it comes to tournaments because it just seems like they're
Yeah,
just like all over the place.
and then I feel like the IBJJF is corrupt. I mean, Roger Gracie's a 10-time world champion of his own organization. I mean, it's like me starting my own Taekwondo league and making sure I win every sparring point bout there.
Right, just running through everybody.
Right. And then I stage who's going to be my competitor, too. And then if someone shows up to my organization that's too good, I'm going to right away, like, somehow blackball them and call them a spazzy white belt.
Terrible, man. It's sad
So,
what
and
people do,
this
man. It's
whole
so
spazzy
sad.
white belt thing was never a thing because
Mm-hmm.
the idea was if there was a spazzy white belt, the blue belt to the black belt chokes the spaz out of them till they're ready to drill and be professional with lower belts. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why kind of like I don't really have because I had one guy here. He seemed like a spazzy white belt, but he realized his spaz gets him in trouble there. Right. So he spaz out
Yeah.
with a guy that knows jujitsu. They're gonna choke you out or submit you or whatever. You have leg locks, ankle locks, you have all that stuff.
With
And
ease.
we call like chicken wings, Ezekiel chokes, different collars.
Yeah. Anything we want, we're gonna get. You want to be
So, and this
spazzy
is why,
about it?
like, I kind of feel like Taekwondo people, and I don't know if I sent you a message about that earlier, but it's kind of like I feel like Taekwondo people who make fun of Jiu-Jitsu people are stupid. And then I also think Jiu-Jitsu people, though, who make fun of Taekwondo people are stupid.
Yeah.
Because I actually
I
really like both. I love both arts, actually.
mm-hmm.
And then, the flexibility and the leg strength from Taekwondo definitely helps your agility and certain things for Taekwondo or for Jiu-Jitsu, I mean.
Right. I
So
was just
that's
about to
why
ask.
once I understood like the technique behind like triangles with my legs,
Mm-hmm.
oh gosh, that was like a moneymaker for me. So I'm flexible and strong there in that area there,
Mm-hmm.
just from all my years of kicking and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
like when the fact that like when you like you start when I, like you start doing jujitsu and then you eventually start going off into other martial arts, it always kind of seems to come back. Like it always seemed like, okay, how can I use this in jujitsu? Like it never fails.
yes, well, that's true. And then, but to be honest with you, like jujitsu makes my taekwondo self defense make sense actually.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are doing a lot of Taekwondo self-defense, it's fun and it's cool to memorize and it can be demonstrative, but the reality of the pressures of jiu-jitsu there, they're gonna fail in the self-defense techniques there. It's just like
Yes.
Hapkido techniques with Aikido techniques there, because you have some Taekwondo, like Master Kim kind of understood judo and wrestling there.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't really teach like the Hapkido, Aikido type self defense there.
Mm-hmm.
Because and I teach that here at my school too. That wrist locks only work if you know jujitsu and you're controlling and you're locking that elbow down somehow.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but how about your jujitsu there in Detroit? So, and then I was wondering too, like the different schools between Detroit and Nevada. So I moved to northern Nevada here. I got a really good deal on land. The town is kind of small, but I'm right outside of Reno, it's not very far. And I thought since Nevada's the home of the UFC, I thought, oh, I'm going to find a great jujitsu school, with open mat and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of blackballed by the purple belts there, but I could probably submit the other jiu-jitsu instructors in town here. So, so that's why, like, when I was teaching taekwondo, and then I had a few taekwondo students that want jiu-jitsu too, and then I think they didn't believe me that I know jiu-jitsu too because I really wasn't advertising it at first.
Mm-hmm.
And my one student was like probably like 40 pounds heavier than me and maybe around my height, but maybe a half inch taller.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, anyways, I submit him in less than I don't know, less than 20 seconds or something. But he
Oh
never
wow.
done jujitsu there. But he just thought maybe because he was bigger and I was originally a taekwondo instructor, maybe he thought that I was full of shit that I didn't know or that I knew jujitsu there. But he's
Mm-hmm.
actually the blue belt now. That he's the blue belt guy, and he's lost like
Oh wow.
weight, and he looks really good. And then that's the guy that dominated at the Vegas tournament. But
Okay.
that was the same guy that started taekwondo with me. And then originally, because I wasn't gonna poach some of these other jujitsu students, and I'm still not poaching other people. But I had a family come say they spent $1,500 on a contract with the jiu-jitsu school over there for 6 months, and that all the
That's
kids hated after
crazy.
the kids hated after 2 weeks. And then the lady's asking me if I can call over there and help them get out of it. I said, lady,
No.
I guess you're either showing up to those classes or they just got you $1,500.
For real.
So I don't do contracts like that. So my location, you sign up for a month. If for some reason you just think I hate Mr. Dyke, he's a fucking dick. He trains too hard, or his standards or something. Like it's no harm, no foul. You paid for a month, but there's no contract.
Right.
You don't want
Same
to,
here. Same with
Yeah,
same with our
that's
spot.
good.
We don't believe in contracts. It's like it's month to month because I've seen people sign up for like 3-4 months and never show up.
Well, and these contract places know that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so in Taekwondo places in North Carolina, we're doing 18-month contracts, and they know someone's going to pay $2,500 in gear because they're all excited. And I had a family here all excited too, and they just can't make the schedule and they're too tired. So these places know that's going to happen with people. So North Carolina, there's one Taekwondo place. They charging $2,500 for all the point sparring gear, which I think is bullcrap. You don't need to wear all this gear for point sparring or semi to non-contact sparring. So that's why some Muay Thai places I think are kind of a joke too. They're over padding themselves and they're still just playing tap, or
Mm-hmm.
touch. You don't need to wear full gear to play a game of tag. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if you're starting to throw full leg, straight leg kicks and heavy blows, then that's not sparring anymore. Now you're fighting.
Yeah. Now you're fighting. Yeah.
When you start, trying to land blows versus points, now you're fighting. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah. That's
but
that's crazy. I'm lucky enough to I haven't ran. I've heard schools of schools like that a lot that charges 2-3 month contracts, or they have to pay for the year straight out. But that's I understand
Oh
it's a
yeah, and I heard
business.
places with
That's more
18-month
robbery.
contracts and people. Yeah, I've heard this one place in North Carolina. They're paying like up to over $2,000 for all the sparring equipment, and maybe another $2,000 right away on the 18-month contract. And they know half these people are not going to fulfill that 18-month contract, and they just took $3,500 away from a military family. See, that's what they do. They have a couple kids sign up, parents
Yeah.
there, and they know they're going to be busy, and all of a sudden, boom, military family just they thought their kids are going to be expert black belts, and all of a sudden they realize, well, why did I buy all this sparring gear? Your sparring class is once a week for 30 minutes, and then you have a lane form class. So that's why, and actually what's funny, I love Taekwondo. I'm obsessed with Taekwondo. I love it, but I actually get along with Jiu-Jitsu practitioners better on social media than I do Taekwondo people.
Really?
Yeah, Jiu-Jitsu people have better conversation and they're more realistic. And then I don't know, but I kind of like, my Taekwondo is straightforward there. There's boxing at blue belt, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the original Chang Han system there.
So you incorporate a lot of self-defense in your jiu-jitsu.
Yes, yep. But we actually, the way my classes are run, and I'm sorry, this is eating up a lot of my battery. So I have 5%.
Yeah, we're
Um,
just about done. So you'll be all
okay.
right.
So yeah, I incorporate a lot of self-defense in the jiu-jitsu testing, but pretty much when you come to my classes on a regular basis, it's kind of like if you're in the full jiu-jitsu program, you're basically doing 2 hours of jiu-jitsu 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
And the first half hour is kind of like a warm-up and stretching. The second half hour is more like leg conditioning and body weight CrossFit. The third half hour is drilling a lot of technique, and then the fourth half hour is just rolling and sparring.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes when I have a smaller class with my new blue belt, the guy that's like around my size, and sometimes he originally he was weighing more than me. Me and him been having good rounds up to like, we've been sparring for like 45 minutes. We'll drill like a new technique there or cover a technique, and then we're just going. And that's how he's able to progress, fast because he's able to, roll with a black belt on a regular basis there too. But
Yeah.
he also has to start sparring more lower belts, and this is where, it's kind of one of these things where I'm trying to organize my schedule with marketing and things like that. But I also have success when other schools overmarket, because people that overmarket sometimes people will be like, well, we checked out that place. Let's check out this place.
Right.
So sometimes I get people showing up from other people's marketing. So, but we're kind of a newer school here in town. The other places have been here longer. And I've moved around a lot, so it's just kind of one of these things. But my current Taekwondo family, too, and they just got promoted to blue belt, a little kid and a little boy. Um, she says that I'm the most professional fitness person in town. And they're really nice people, and she teaches part-time at the school.
Okay, so unfortunately, Albert's phone died, so we wouldn't be able to finish the episode. But I would definitely like to thank him for taking his time out to come on the show and bless us with his jiu-jitsu knowledge. Hope you guys enjoyed what we was able to record. But we will definitely have him back on because he, was very entertaining to listen to him talk. But please go and follow our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube page to stay up to date on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live Jiu-Jitsu. Have a great day.